The distance from my grill to my kitchen fridge is exactly 34 steps. I know this because I've counted. 34 steps on a blazing Texas afternoon in mid-July, with a sizzling spatula in one hand and a desperate, soul-shattering thirst, is not a walk. It's a marathon. It's a culinary no-man's land, a trek across the Gobi Desert of my own backyard. It is, frankly, an unacceptable logistical failure. My name is Mark. I'm not a complicated man. I like my steaks medium rare, my grass cut, by someone else, and my beer cold. My backyard is my kingdom. It's not much, just a cookie-cutter slice of suburban pie in a neighborhood that prizes beige conformity above all else, but it's my slice. I built the deck with my own 2 hands, and a lot of help from a contractor named Sal, who did most of the actual building. I strung the Edison bulbs myself. I am the high priest of the Behemoth, a 7-burner stainless steel grill that's probably visible from space. This patio is my sanctuary, the place I go to escape the endless spreadsheets of my 9 to 5 and the endless laminated bylaws of our neighborhood's Committee for the Stifling of Joy, otherwise known as the Homeowners Association. And for one glorious, shimmering week, my sanctuary was perfect. The problem, as stated, was the 34 steps. On a day when the Behemoth is running at a surface-of-the-sun temperature, you generate a lot of personal heat. A lot. And when that internal thermometer hits the red, you need refreshment. You need it now. Not 34 steps from now. "I'm doing it," I announced to my wife, Sarah, one Tuesday. "Doing what?" she asked, not looking up from her laptop. "Filing our taxes from April? Fixing that leaky faucet in the guest bath?" "Better. I'm solving the 34-step problem. I'm buying an outdoor fridge." She finally looked up, a flicker of genuine interest in her eyes. "Oh, that's actually a good idea." It wasn't just a good idea. It was a revelation. It was the Declaration of Independence and the invention of the wheel all rolled into one. 2 days later, it arrived. A sleek, stainless steel cube of pure, unadulterated convenience. 4.5 cubic feet of frosty freedom. It wasn't massive, it wasn't obnoxious, it was elegant. I nestled it in the corner of the patio, right next to my grilling station, hidden from the world by a 6-foot privacy fence on one side and a large, mostly thriving ficus on the other. I plugged it in. The gentle, almost imperceptible hum it made was the most beautiful sound I'd ever heard. I loaded it with essentials, a 6-pack of a local IPA, a bottle of white wine for Sarah, a few sodas, and a strategic reserve of water. I waited. I waited for 2 agonizing hours for it to reach optimal temperature. And then, the moment. I had the Behemoth roaring. Burgers were sizzling. The sun was setting. I was sweating. I turned, not toward the house, but to my right. I wiped a single, manly tear of joy from my eye. I opened the door. The little blue LED light clicked on, illuminating the glorious, moisture-beaded cans within. I pulled one out. The hiss of the cap was a symphony. The cold aluminum was a balm to my hand. I took a sip. It was like the angels themselves had carbonated it. It was the nectar of the gods, a frosty missile of pure happiness. I had done it. I had achieved peak suburbia. I had conquered the 34 steps. My kingdom was complete. Of course, I should have known. In a covenant-controlled community, happiness is a temporary and highly regulated state of being. We pay a hefty quarterly fee to be bossed around by neighbors with too much time, too much spite, and not enough actual hobbies. And in our neighborhood, the Grand Inquisitor, the high priestess of petty tyranny, the warden of our beige-colored prison, was Brenda. Brenda lived 3 doors down. She was a woman who owned more visors than a professional poker tournament and had a clipboard that seemed to be a permanent extension of her arm. Brenda was the president of the HOA. She had, in the past, personally fined me for my welcome mat being an unapproved shade of Tuscan sunset, which she claimed was too evocative. She had measured the height of my grass with a ruler. Brenda was the reason we couldn't have inflatable Christmas decorations. I had just cracked my first perfect patio-side beer. I had no idea that 300 yards away, in a second-story bathroom, a pair of binoculars was already being aimed in my direction. I had achieved perfection, but I had forgotten one crucial rule of the suburbs. Brenda abhors a vacuum. And she really abhors a happy, hydrated man. The honeymoon lasted for 48 glorious hours, 2 full days of grilling and chilling. I'd go out to the behemoth, spatula in hand, and just open the fridge for no reason, just to look. Just to know it was there. I was a king surveying his lands, and my lands were, for the first time, logistically perfect. I hosted an impromptu barbecue. My buddy Dave clapped me on the back. "An outdoor fridge, man. You're living the dream." "I am, Dave," I said, handing him a frosty one. "I really am." Then came Thursday. I walked out to get the mail, and that's when I saw it. It wasn't in the mailbox, which would have been standard, professional. No, this was a power move. This was a message. It was a cheap manila envelope, taped, to my freshly painted front door, right at eye level. The adhesive from the masking tape was already reacting with the heat, creating a gummy, impossible-to-remove residue. An act of war in itself. My name, Mr. Davis, was written on the front in an aggressive, looping cursive that could only belong to one person. "Sarah!" I yelled, not even inside yet. "She's done it! The witch has struck!" I tore the envelope off the door, taking a nice 1-inch chip of naval blue paint with it. I didn't even care. I ripped it open, my hands shaking with a righteous fury. It was a single laminated sheet of paper. Official notice of violation to resident, 1422 Willow Creek Drive, from the Crestwood Hills HOA Architectural Review Committee. Date: November 6th, 2025. Violation, Section 4, Article 8B, Exterior Modifications and Personal Property. Description: It has come to the attention of the committee, hereinafter HOA, that an unapproved outdoor appliance, hereinafter the violation, has been installed on the property. Per the covenants, conditions and restrictions, CC&Rs, no appliances, including but not limited to refrigerators, freezers, sauce, ice makers, or washing machines, shall be stored or installed on any exterior portion of the property, including patios, visible from the street or any adjacent property. Action required. You must remediate the violation within 10 days. Remediate shall be defined as the complete and permanent removal of the violation from the property. Penalty. Failure to remediate will result in an initial fine of $50, followed by escalating daily fines of $50 per day until the property is brought into compliance. I stood there, on my front porch, the gummy tape residue on my fingers, the laminated sheet trembling in my hand. An appliance? I whispered. I stormed inside. Sarah was at the kitchen island, drinking coffee. Listen to this. Just listen to this, I said, my voice dangerously calm. I cleared my throat and put on my most obnoxious, pompous, bureaucratic voice. It has come to the attention of the committee that an unapproved outdoor appliance has been installed. Sarah sighed, that deep, long-suffering sigh that wives perfect after years of practice. Oh, Mark, it is an appliance. That's not the point, I shouted, waving the letter. It's a betrayal of the social contract. It's a beverage cooler. It's just a little box of cold. And she called it the violation, like I'd installed a meth lab on the patio. It's Brenda, isn't it? Of course it's Brenda. And look at this, visible from the street or any adjacent property. It is not. It's behind a 6-foot fence and a ficus that's mostly alive. You can't see it. Mark, just put a cover on it or something, Sarah said, turning back to her coffee. It's not worth it. You know how she is. A cover? A cover? Like a fridge tarp? That's probably a violation, too. Unapproved fabric-based appliance concealment. And no, it is worth it. This isn't about the fridge, Sarah. This is about liberty. This is about the 34 steps. This is about justice. It's about you being stubborn. Also, yes, but mostly justice. And how did she even see it? I don't know, Mark. She's got skills. Oh, she's got skills, all right. I was fuming. I was pacing. I'm going to find her. I'm going to talk to her. No, Mark, don't, Sarah called after me. But I was already out the door. I didn't have to go far. I knew her schedule. 9:15 a.m. Power walk patrol. Sure enough, there she was, rounding the corner, her white visor glinting in the morning sun, her clipboard held firmly against her chest. Brenda! I called out, trying to sound casual, neighborly. I failed. I sounded like a man who had just gargled with battery acid. She stopped. She didn't smile. Brenda never smiled. She just acknowledged. Mark, I see you received the notice. I did. I have to say, Brenda, I'm a little confused. Appliance? The bylaws are explicit, Mark. Section 4, Article 8b. I cited it for you. Right, but it's an outdoor-rated beverage cooler. It's not like a Maytag. It's sleek. It's stainless. It enhances the patio experience. It is a refrigerator, she stated, as if I were a very stupid child. It's an appliance. It's a violation. The rules are the rules. They protect our property values. How is my tiny hidden box of soda going to crater the property values, Brenda? How did you even see it? It's behind my 6-foot privacy fence. She didn't blink. Not once. She just stared at me, her eyes shielded by the visor, but I could feel their cold, judgmental power. I was in my second-story master bath, she said, her voice a monotone. I was inspecting Mr. Henderson's chimney flashing from my window, for his own safety, of course. His flashing is not up to code, and as I was scanning the neighborhood for other potential safety hazards, with my binoculars, your appliance was clearly visible over the Hendersons' unapproved azalea bushes, which I'll be dealing with next. I was dumbstruck. Binoculars? From her bathroom. She was a high-tech peeping Tom for the aesthetically offended. You were spying on me? I was observing the community, Mark. A community you are currently in violation of. You have 10 days to remediate. Have a lovely day. She turned, her expensive sneakers squeaking on the pavement, and continued her power walk. I stood there, in the middle of the sidewalk, my fists clenched. The paint chip was still on my finger. Remediate, I muttered under my breath. Oh, I'll remediate something, Brenda. You remediated your way into a war. I went home and did what any red-blooded American male would do when faced with petty tyranny. I complained to my wife. I kicked a patio chair, and then I went to my garage to pout and scheme. For the first few days, I was in the denial and bargaining stages of grief. Maybe if I just ignore it, I said to Sarah on day 3. It's a laminated letter from Brenda Mark. It's not a suggestion. She's not going to forget. On day 5, I tried my first counter-move. Camouflage. I went to the craft store and bought several strands of the most realistic-looking fake ivy I could find. I spent an hour artfully draping it over the fridge. There, I said, stepping back. It's not a fridge, it's a shrub. A very shiny, square shrub. Sarah just shook her head. It looks like a refrigerator that's losing a fight with the jungle. She was right. It was pathetic. And predictably, it didn't work. By 5 p.m., there was a new piece of tape on my door. Another laminated sheet. Violation, Section 7, Article 2A, Landscaping and Flora. Description, installation of unapproved flora, to wit artificial vines, on additional violation. Section 4, Article 8B, Exterior Modifications. Description, the aforementioned unapproved outdoor appliance. The violation remains unremediated and has, in fact, been exacerbated. Action required, remove the violation and the unapproved flora. Exacerbated! I've exacerbated the violation! I roared. Who talks like this? Who is this woman? On day 8, I tried practicality. Fine, I yelled to no one. I'll build a box. I went to the hardware store. I bought lumber. I'm not Sal, but I can handle a 2x4. I spent all of Saturday building a simple cedar plank box to encase the fridge. A little shed. A beverage cooler cozy, if you will. I was actually proud of it. It was rustic. It was neat. It blended in. It lasted 12 hours. Sunday morning. Another note. This one was practically vibrating with smugness. Violation, Section 6, Article 1C, Detached Structures. Description, construction of an unapproved detached structure, to wit, a wooden box, without prior written consent from the Architectural Review Committee. P.S. The original violation, Section 4, 8b, is still noted. Your fines are accumulating. That's it! I screamed. Sarah had to physically restrain me from marching over to Brenda's house with the wooden box and remediating it through her front window. On day 11, the first fine arrived. A crisp, computer-printed invoice. $50, due in 10 days. On day 12, another $50. On day 13, $50 more. The letters were piling up on the dining room table, which I had officially declared my war room. I had the CC&Rs, all 84 pages of single-spaced legal font misery, spread out, covered in highlighter. This is insane, I muttered, pacing the room. The woman is a tyrant. She's the Pol Pot of the cul-de-sac. Mark, honey, please, Sarah begged. Just move it into the garage. It's not worth it. We're going to have to pay these fines. Never! I slammed my fist on the table. I will not negotiate with terrorists. She's got us on a technicality. The problem isn't the fridge. The problem is the category. She called it an appliance. My stupid box was an unapproved structure. The ivy was unapproved flora. She's got every angle covered. I collapsed onto the couch, defeated. The house was quiet. The only sound was the TV, which was on some highbrow news channel Sarah liked. They were doing a segment on an art show in Miami. And in the art world's most talked-about moment this week, the reporter chirped, a piece by the enigmatic artist Voila, which consists of a single banana duct-taped to a gallery wall, sold to a private collector for a staggering $120,000. I sat up. I stared at the screen. They showed a picture. It was a banana taped to a wall. A banana, I whispered. I know, right? Sarah said, scrolling through her phone. It's so stupid. People have too much money. No, I said, a slow, dawning realization spreading across my face, a tingle starting in my chest. No, Sarah, it's genius. Mark, we are not duct-taping fruit to our house, she said, her voice full of preemptive exhaustion. Brenda will have an aneurysm, which, okay, that part sounds fun, but… Shut up, shut up, shut up. I was on my feet, frantically scrambling through the pages of the CC&Rs in the war room. Where is it? Where is it? Where… Aha! I grabbed the page and ran back to the couch, waving it. Listen! Listen to this! I read from Section 11, Aesthetic Encouragement. Residents are encouraged to tastefully display outdoor sculptures, statuary, or other forms of art to enhance the community's aesthetic character, pending ARC review for placement. Sarah looked at me, her eyes narrowing. She knew this look. This was my I'm going to buy a 7-burner grill look. Mark, what are you doing? My grin was 90% mania. I'm doing what they did with the banana. Brenda's problem, and her fatal flaw, is that she thinks my fridge is an appliance. She's a literalist, but I'm going to change its entire ontological category. I'm going to recontextualize it. You're going to what? It's not a fridge, honey. It's a found object installation. It's a ready-made, like Duchamp's toilet. You are comparing your beer fridge to a priceless piece of Dadaist history. Exactly. The bylaws say nothing about found object installations. It's art. And she can't fine me for art, because the bylaws encourage art. Mark, she's the Architectural Review Committee. She's just going to unreview it, or unapprove it. Ah, but she can't, because what's the one thing that separates a piece of junk from a piece of art? A $120,000 price tag. No, presentation. I'm not just going to say it's art. I'm going to make it art. It needs a frame. A giant, ridiculous, gaudy gold leaf picture frame. And it needs a plaque. A museum plaque. Sarah stared at me for a full 10 seconds. The house was silent. Then a slow, dangerous smile spread across her face. Oh, Mark, no. Oh, Mark, yes, I said, grabbing my phone. It's not a fridge. It's a commentary on the cold emptiness of suburban life. It's cold modernism. You're insane, she whispered, the smile growing wider. I'm an artist, I corrected. And I know exactly who can be my fabricator. I need to call Sal. I had Sal's number on speed dial. Sal was the guy who built our deck, a grizzled 60-something carpenter who wore an I'd rather be fishing hat unironically and looked like he'd been carved from a single sun-tanned block of oak. He was old school. He believed in plumb lines, level surfaces, and the profound structural inadequacy of these new-fangled composite boards. He was also, I suspected, a fellow traveler in the land of not putting up with anyone's crap. I dialed. He picked up on the second ring, as if he'd been waiting for a challenge. Sal's Construction. You break it, I build it. Sal, it's Mark, over on Willow Creek. Your deck is still standing, by the way. No rotting. Mark, yeah. Course it's still standing. I built it, he grunted. Those composite boards are still an abomination before God, but the frame is solid. What did you do? Knock a hole in it with that monster grill of yours? No, nothing like that. Listen, Sal, I've got a weird one for you. It's a conceptual project. There was a long silence on the other end, filled only by the sound of what I assumed was a very loud, very industrial tape measure snapping shut. Conceptual, Sal repeated, drawing the word out like it tasted bad. Kid, I don't do conceptual. I pour concrete. I frame houses. I don't do Zen gardens or water features that look like a pile of rocks. I did a panic room for a guy who thought his ex-wife was a ninja. This ain't weirder than that, is it? I think it might be, Sal. I need you to build a picture frame. A picture frame? Like, for a picture? I'm a carpenter, Mark, not a, whatever you call him. A framer. Go to Michael's. No, you don't understand. This thing needs to be structural. I need a giant picture frame, like 4 feet by 3 feet. And it needs to be gaudy, obnoxious, gold. I'm talking ornate, Victorian era. My great-grandmother hated this so much she was buried with it gaudy. Another long pause. Okay, a big, ugly gold frame. So what? You gonna hang it on your house? No, Sal. That's the conceptual part. I need you to bolt it to my concrete patio. The silence this time was profound. I thought he might have hung up. I could just hear him breathing. A slow, gravelly rattle. You want me to build a giant gold frame and bolt it, empty, to your patio. Not empty, I said, a little too quickly. It's going around my outdoor fridge. I waited. The silence stretched. I heard him set a tool down. He took a deep, shuddering breath. And then, a sound I had never heard from him before. A low, gravelly chuckle. It started in his chest, turned into a cough, and then erupted into a full-blown, wheezing laugh. This is about that HOA lady, isn't it? He finally choked out. The one with the visor and the clipboard? The one and only. Oh, kid, he was cackling now. Oh, that is beautiful. That is the dumbest, most glorious, most American thing I have ever heard in my 40 years of building. I'm on my way. I'm canceling the Henderson job. You were at Henderson's? Yeah, fixing his chimney flashing. That lady is a menace. I'll be there in an hour. We're gonna need at least 6-inch molding for this. Crown molding. And we're not using that spray paint crap. We're getting real gold leaf. We're going full Liberace on this witch. An hour later, Sal's beat-up Ford F-150 was parked, illegally, on the grass, in front of my house. He came to the backyard with his own clipboard, a giant grin on his face. All right, artist, he said. Show me the what did you call it? The canvas. The violation, I said, pointing at the fridge. Beautiful. He knelt, tapping the concrete. Yeah, we can do this. I'll use 1/2-inch anchor bolts, straight into the slab. This thing will be able to withstand a hurricane. And her. He started taking meticulous measurements, sketching on a legal pad. He was no longer a man. He was an artist. He was my Rodin. We gotta make it look legit, though, he said, chewing on a pencil. If it's art, it needs one of them. You know, the little plaques, like a museum. You gotta have a plaque, kid, on a little stand and everything. That's the part that makes it art. Without the plaque, it's just a fridge and a frame. He was a genius. He was a master. Sal, you're brilliant. You're my co-conspirator. Nah, kid, I'm just the fabricator. You're the artist, the found object guy. Now, I'm gonna go get the molding. You, you go write your plaque. Make it conceptual. While Sal went off to procure the ornate materials for our masterpiece, I sat down at my laptop. This was my moment. This was my artist's statement. I cackled as I typed. I giggled. I wrote and rewrote. It had to be perfect. It had to be pretentious. It had to be impenetrable. An hour later, I had it. I drove to the Things Remembered at the local mall. The teenage clerk, who looked like she was dying of boredom, looked up from her phone. "Can I help you?" "Yes," I said, sliding a piece of paper and a shiny brass plaque across the counter. "I need this engraved, please." She read the paper. She looked up at me. She looked back at the paper. You want it to say, spite?" "Yes, capital S, please. It's a medium." "Oh, okay, whatever, man. It's your plaque." By the time I got back, Sal was already in my backyard, a cloud of sawdust around him. The zing of his miter saw was, for the first time, the sound of creation, the sound of victory. The next day was a Tuesday. I took a personal day. This was history in the making, and I wasn't going to miss it. Sal rolled up at 8 a.m. sharp, his truck bed loaded with the most ostentatious, ornately carved molding I had ever seen. It looked like it had been stolen from a French palace. "It's primed," he announced, dropping the tailgate with a clang. "Now for the fun part." The build was a glorious spectacle, a masterpiece of malicious construction. This wasn't just a frame. It was a fortress of pettiness. Sal was a true artist. He mitered the corners with a precision that was almost terrifying. He countersunk the screws. He caulked every seam. He had a small, velvet-covered bag of gold leaf sheets and a tiny brush, and he applied it with the loving care of a Renaissance painter restoring a chapel. This all happened in broad daylight. My neighbors, of course, were baffled. Mr. Henderson, whose chimney flashing was still, I assumed, a safety hazard, leaned over his unapproved azaleas. "Mornin', Mark. What you buildin' there?" "Art Henderson," I yelled back, feeling the creative spirit flow through me. "It's an installation." "Oh, right. Looks gold." I could see other curtains twitching. The neighborhood text chain was, I could only assume, on fire. What's Mark doing? Is that a throne? Is he building a shrine to his grill? By noon, the frame was built, gold and shimmering in the Texas sun. It was hideous. It was magnificent. "Now for the plaque," Sal said, rubbing his hands together. He had fabricated a small, tasteful, in its own way, brass-colored stand, which he bolted to the concrete about a foot to the left of the framed area. I unwrapped my plaque from its velvet bag. I'd screwed it to a piece of matching cedar. We affixed it to the stand. It was time. Sal and I, with great ceremony, slid the stainless steel fridge into its new, glorious home. It fit like a glove. Sal got on his hands and knees, and with a power drill that sounded like a jet engine, drove 4 6-inch anchor bolts through the frame's base and into my patio. "There," he said, standing up and wiping his brow. "Let's see her try to remediate that. She'll need the jaws of life." We stood back. The sight was breathtaking. A sleek 21st century appliance, now forever encased in a gaudy 18th century gold frame. And next to it, the plaque. I read it aloud, my voice thick with emotion. Cold Modernism, 2025. Artist M. Davis. Medium, stainless steel, freon, and spite. A stark commentary on the juxtaposition of suburban conformity and the human desire for refreshment. The piece explores the frigid boundaries of community and the cold shoulder of bureaucracy. The internal regulated temperature of 37 degc represents the chilling effect of arbitrary rules on the human spirit. Sal wiped a tear from his eye. It's beautiful, kid. It's the best damn thing I ever built. We built it, Sal, I said, clapping him on the back. We built it. I went inside, retrieved 2 of the coldest beers from the installation, and we christened it. To art, Sal said, raising his can. To spite, I replied. After Sal packed up and drove off, whistling, I went inside to retrieve my co-conspirator. Sarah, I called. The gallery is open. She came out onto the patio. She stopped. She looked at the fridge. She looked at the frame. She looked at the plaque. She covered her mouth. I wasn't sure if she was going to laugh or cry. Mark, she said, it's the most ridiculous, ugly, wonderful thing I have ever seen in my entire life. I know, I said, beaming. Now, for the final touch. I knew Brenda's patrol schedule. 4:30 p.m. Sharp. At 4:25 p.m., Sarah and I sat up. We brought out a tiny, wobbly card table. I threw a red and white checkered tablecloth over it. I produced a plate of the driest, orangest, most processed pre-cut cheese cubes I could find at the bottom of our deli drawer. The trap was set. Places, places, I whispered. And we sat down. At 4:29, I began my performance. In a loud, obnoxious, art critic voice I'd only ever heard in movies, I began. Oh, darling, I announced to the neighborhood. The boldness of it, the way the industrial form language of the appliance, or what the proletariat would call an appliance, is subverted by the ornate, almost Baroque frame. It's challenging. Yes, Muffy, Sarah played along, barely holding back a tidal wave of giggles. It's just so cold. And modern, it really interrogates the space. It does. It interrogates the hell out of it. We heard it. The squeak of sneakers on pavement. The squeak stopped. I looked over the fence line. There she was. Brenda. She wasn't moving. She was just staring. Her visor was askew. Her clipboard was held at a strange, limp angle. Brenda, I called out, waving my cheese cube. So glad you could make it to the opening. Welcome to the exhibit. She didn't respond. She just started walking, slowly at first, then faster. She wasn't power walking. She was marching. She stormed right up my driveway, through the side gate, a violation, and onto my patio. She stopped dead. Her jaw was unhinged. She looked at the fridge. She looked at the frame. She looked at the cheese cubes. Her eyes drifted, read the plaque. Her clipboard fell from her hand and clattered onto the concrete. What? She sputtered. What? In God's name, is that? I stood up, wiping my hands on my pants like a true artiste. Brenda, welcome. This is Cold Modernism. It's my new piece. I'm the artist, Monsieur Davis. I gestured to the plaque. Do you like it? I feel it really ties the patio together. That's a fridge, she shrieked, her voice cracking. You put a frame on it. That's an appliance. I put a hand to my heart, feigning a deep, artistic wound. Whoa, Brenda. Are you criticizing my art? That's a pretty harsh critique. I mean, art is subjective, I know, but I checked the bylaws. Article 11. Lawn art and statuary are encouraged. I'm just doing my part for the community's aesthetic. She was literally vibrating. I thought she might explode. Are you censoring me, Brenda? I asked, my voice low and serious. Because that feels like a violation of my First Amendment rights. That feels a little un-American. I'm fining you, she finally screamed, finding her voice. I'm fining you for this, for tacky art fridges. I don't think tacky art fridge is a recognized category in the CC&Rs, I said. But you're welcome to check. Brenda's face had gone from white to a deep, alarming shade of puce. She picked up her clipboard, her eyes wild. I'm calling the police, she screamed, pointing a trembling finger at me. You're harassing me with art. She turned and stormed off, not even bothering with the gate, just trampling through my azaleas. I turned back to Sarah. She had a cheese cube halfway to her mouth, her face a mask of pure, unadulterated shock and awe. She's actually calling the cops, Sarah whispered. I took a sip of my beer. Good, I said. The critics should be here any minute. 20 minutes later, just as the sun was beginning to dip below the perfect beige rooflines of our neighborhood, a patrol car rolled slowly down Willow Creek Drive. My heart was hammering, but not with fear, with ecstasy. This was it. This was the final act. I had graduated. I'd gone from guy with a rules-breaking welcome mat to guy with an unapproved shrub fridge, and now, finally, I had achieved the suburban nuclear option. Guy the cops are being called on. I was a legend in my own backyard. Sarah, on the other hand, was having a minor panic attack. Mark, this has gone too far. They're going to arrest you for fridge art. We're going to be on the news. Relax, I said, pulling out a patio chair for her. What's the charge? Aggravated artistry? Possession of a framed appliance with intent to hydrate? It's fine. The squad car pulled up, not in front of my house, but directly between my house and Brenda's, who was now standing on her own perfect, violation-free lawn, arms crossed, filming the entire encounter with her phone. 2 officers got out. One was older, with a mustache that had seen things, and a general, I'm 2 years from retirement and I hate everything vibe. The other was younger, sharper, and looked like he was desperately trying to maintain his professional composure. The nameplates read Miller, Mr. Retirement, and Chen, Mr. Composure. They walked up my driveway. I met them at the edge of the patio, hands clasped behind my back, the picture of a law-abiding and artistically inclined citizen. Evening, officers, I said, chipper. Miller sighed, a sound that seemed to come from the depths of his soul. He looked at me. He looked at Brenda filming. He looked back at me. Sir, are you Mark Davis? That's me. Or, as I'm known in the local art scene, M. Davis. Can I offer you a soda from the installation? Miller's mustache twitched. Sir, and I truly cannot believe I am saying these words. We got a call about a hostile art installation? Chen, behind him, coughed into his hand. It sounded suspiciously like a laugh. Miller continued. The dispatcher said that the reporting party, Ms. Johnson over there, he gestured with his head toward Brenda, feels threatened and harassed by your refrigerator. Threatened, I said, clutching my pearls. Goodness, no. That's the last thing I'd want. I was just having a small gallery. Opening. She's the one who trespassed on my property and started criticizing my work. Officers, please, come in. The exhibit is in the back. You can see for yourselves. It's perfectly harmless." I turned and led the way. I could hear their boots on my walkway. This was the art tour. "As you can see," I said, gesturing grandly as we rounded the corner to the patio, "it's a mixed media piece." I stopped. They stopped. The late afternoon sun hit the gold leaf just so. It was glorious. Brenda, from her yard, shrieked, "That's it! That's the illegal appliance! He's mocking me! Arrest him! Arrest the art!" Miller and Chen stood there, silent. Officer Chen, the younger one, turned his back to me. His shoulders started to shake. He was definitely laughing. He brought his radio up to his mouth and pretended to be talking into it, but I could see his face turning red in the reflection of my sliding glass door. Officer Miller. Oh, Officer Miller. He just stood there. He looked at the fridge. He looked at the massive, ornate gold frame. His eyes drifted left. He leaned in to read the plaque. I watched him mouth the words. Stainless, steel, Freon, and spite. He closed his eyes. He slowly, deliberately, pinched the bridge of his nose, right between the eyes, as if he were trying to ward off the world's most idiotic migraine. He took a long, slow breath in. He exhaled. "Sir," he said, his voice dangerously quiet, his eyes still closed. "What am I looking at?" I cleared my throat. This was my moment. "It's cold modernism, officer," I said, with all the deadpan sincerity I could muster. "It's a stark commentary on the juxtaposition of suburban conformity and the human desire for—" "Stop," Miller said, holding up a single, large hand. "Please, for the love of God, and for the sake of my pension, just don't." He turned. He looked at Brenda, who was still filming, a smug look on her face, like she'd finally won. Miller's voice suddenly boomed across the yards. "Ma'am!" Brenda jumped. "Ma'am, this is a civil matter," Miller yelled. "This man, however odd, has not broken any laws." "But the bylaws!" she shrieked. "He's violating the covenants." "Then you and your covenants can take him to civil court," Miller snapped. What I am looking at, is on his property. It is not a public nuisance. It is not a danger. It is not a crime to be weird. And it is not a crime to have tacky art." "Hey," I said. Miller ignored me. "Ma'am, this is not a 911 emergency. This is not any kind of emergency. Do not call this number again unless someone is actively bleeding or on fire. Are we clear?" Brenda's face, which had been so smug, crumpled. She sputtered. She looked at her phone. She looked at the cops. She lowered the phone, turned, and stormed back into her house. The door slammed. The victory was so total, so absolute, I almost felt bad. Almost. Miller turned back to me. He looked at the fridge. He looked at me. He just shook his head, a look of profound, cosmic exhaustion on his face. "Have a good night, sir." "You too, officers. Stay hydrated." They walked back to their car. As Officer Chen passed me, he leaned in, his hand cupped near his mouth. "For the record," he whispered, "the plaque is my favorite part. Medium, spite. Very raw. Very postmodern. My wife's an art history major. She's gonna love this." He winked. And then he was gone. I stood on my patio. The air was still. The only sound was the faint, victorious hum of cold modernism. The silence that followed was deafening and beautiful. Brenda was defeated. The 911 call was a bridge too far, even for the HOA. The neighborhood, which had been watching the drama unfold from behind their curtains and text messages, had collectively decided Brenda had lost. Brenda herself seemed to vanish. The 9:15 a.m. power walk patrols stopped. The laminated letters ceased. It was like the Wicked Witch had been melted, not by water, but by a tidal wave of sheer, unadulterated artistic spite. We did get one more letter. It wasn't taped to the door. It came via certified mail. It was from the HOA's high-powered, very expensive law firm in the city. It was full of cease and desist and intent to lien and fiduciary duty. It was 5 pages of scary-sounding legal threats, all aimed at the unapproved, framed refrigeration device. This, I'll admit, gave me pause for about a minute. Then I called my cousin, Barry, who was a second-year law student at a state college. "Barry," I said, "I'll give you $100 and all the beer you can drink from my outdoor art installation if you write a letter back to these guys." Barry, who was neck-deep in torts, was thrilled. He wrote a 6-page response on what I can only assume was his school's letterhead that was a masterpiece of legal gibberish. It used the words First Amendment, artistic expression, Duchampian precedent, and potential for a class action countersuit for aesthetic-based harassment, more times than I could count. As a final PS, Barry suggested we include an 8x10 glossy framed photo of the plaque itself. We sent it off. We never heard from the law firm or the HOA about the fridge again. But the story was out. The legend of cold modernism went viral, at least on our 2-street cul-de-sac. And it started a revolution. Greg, 2 doors down, the guy who had been fighting Brenda for months over the unapproved color of his garden hose, it was hunter green instead of forest green, a critical distinction, was the first. One morning I walked out and saw he had built a small, elegant silver-painted frame around his hose reel. Next to it, on a small stake, was a plaque, Serpentine Still Life in Green. The rebellion had begun. The Hendersons, of the infamous chimney flashing and unapproved azaleas, went next. They had a single plastic pink flamingo in, their flower bed that Brenda had been trying to get rid of for years. The Hendersons went full theater. They put up a red velvet rope cordon around the flamingo. They installed a tiny solar-powered spotlight to illuminate it at night. The plaque read, "Avian Absurdity, a Study in Pink." By Christmas, the neighborhood was a rogue art gallery. A family on the corner had their non-compliant basketball hoop, it was 2 inches too tall, reclassified as Orange-Rimmed Hope, an interactive sculpture. A woman who had been cited for her excessively bright welcome mat, the Tuscan Sunset Lady, my old nemesis, had simply put a frame around it and titled it Portal of Evocation. The HOA was neutered. They were powerless. How could they fine art when their own bylaws encouraged it? They would have to rewrite the CCNRs, and no one, not even Brenda's last remaining cronies, had the energy for that. The war was over. And I am Davis, the artist. I had won. My backyard kingdom was finally, truly perfect. It's a beautiful evening tonight. The sun is setting, casting a golden glow on the patio. Sarah is reading a book in the lounge chair, a glass of wine, poured from a bottle chilled in the installation, by her side. I'm at the behemoth, spatula in hand. "You know," Sarah says, not looking up from her book, "from this angle, if I squint..." And I've had 2 glasses of wine. It's almost pretty. It's not about pretty, honey, I say, flipping a perfectly seared steak. It's about meaning. It's about justice. I turn, the spatula in one hand, and walk the 3 steps from my grill to cold modernism. I pull open the gleaming, gold-framed stainless steel door. The little blue LED light hums, a beacon of liberty. I reach in and pull out a fresh, cold beer. I twist the cap, the hiss sounding like a standing ovation. I take a long, cold drink. It's perfect. The air is quiet. No power walkers, no passive-aggressive notes. Just the sound of crickets, the sizzle of the grill, and the faint, triumphant hum of my art. I look at that ridiculous, beautiful framed appliance, and I know exactly what I'm tasting. It isn't just beer. It's the sweet, cold taste of victory. And a little bit of spite. Capital S.